You received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Well, I am doing wonderful. And what about you, Lisa? How are you doing these days? Okay. Remember, you are in prison. It's not supposed to be a cakewalk. Yep. I know you. And there's, it's just like the old saying goes that you should accept the things you can't change and change the things that you can. So there's things in there that you have control over. How people act and all the gossip and all of the mistreatment that's going on there and abuse. There's things you can do to counter that by filing complaints and getting some support from the outside. But there's other things in there you just have to accept. You're not free. And so you have to accept the fact that you committed a crime, got convicted, and you're paying the price. That you just have to accept that. But the going to classes, learning a skill, working to improve your life when you get out, that's something you should concentrate on, and that's good. And if you spend as much time working on that goal, you'll get out and you'll be quite successful. And success comes in many different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be rich and prosperous, as long as you're happy, and that's the key. And happiness depends on you. Yeah, I know, and we are aware of the issues that's going on in there. And fortunately, there's people that are speaking out. But we're not going to be able to help you if you don't let us know what's going on and take the time to fight it. And we're here to support you in any way we can. But the hardest part is going to be on your end. And I'm concerned about retaliation. I don't want people coming after you. I know when I started publishing some of the bad things that were going on in the prison, retaliation against the folks who were reporting them to me were just terrible. And I called them out on it. And it led me in the right direction to the point now the DOC isn't a threat to me. It's really easy to find the mistakes these people make, and it's really easy to record them. And that's what I do. I keep a journal. I do a paperwork trail, and it pays off. So now I can actually take these people to court and I have a better chance of winning. But with the DOC, they're like you guys. You go out and you're committing a crime, but you do it anyway. And your thought is that you're not going to be caught. The DOC, they'll commit crimes with the idea that they're not going to get caught. But when I was in law enforcement, we would say the first time the criminal is going to get away with it. If a person shoplifts, there's a good chance that first time the person won't be caught. It's that second time where they mess up. That's when you catch them. And with the DOC, when they get away with stuff because nobody's complaining, and then you catch them the second time around. And
You have 60 seconds remaining.
that's what I count on. Oh yeah, and out here I don't expect people to love the DOC. I know I've had a few people saying that they were able to take advantage of some situations that they ran into within prison, and it helped them. But in the most part, anything that's offered in prison can be offered out here. And I think it's better out here.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Right, right. And that's what you should do. If the state's going to pay for it, take advantage of it. And then when you get out, use that to your advantage. Yeah, well, it was great talking to you, and keep up the good work. I'm glad you're taking advice. I'm glad you're giving advice. And don't let the DOC get you down. Yeah, you're better than that. Okay, well, I'll talk to you later. Oh yeah, yeah. I'll definitely let them know that you called and you say hi.
Thank you for using Inmate Call. Goodbye.
Hello, welcome to AQS Inmate Call. I am your host, Joel Wilborn. Now, this episode is about DOC hatred. I know when you see something on the news about a person who abducts and abuses and murders a child, you want this person to be caught and brought to justice. That's a natural feeling that people have towards the criminal world. I mean, we've got a president who wants to get rid of all people who come into the country illegally, especially those that come over here and then start committing crimes, and maybe thinking that they are immune to prosecution or that they're not going to get the same punishment that they would in their original country or something. I don't know what goes through their mind. And when we run into things like that, we see this on the news and we want to get rid of these people. We have to also consider that this is a learning opportunity. And if a person feels compelled to commit a crime, of course, they're not going to expect to be caught. They're thinking, I can go out and commit this crime and I'm not going to get caught and my life will be better. I don't know. I don't know what goes through their mind. But the person commits a crime, gets caught, goes to prison. They can't expect everything to work out perfect. And I've had people complain about things like it was too cold in their room or their blanket wasn't comfortable or they didn't have good shoes. There's something that out here can easily be fixed because you can just go buy a new one or repair it. But in there, it's frustrating for them. And it's hard for me to feel any sympathy for them because they knew what they were getting into. Now, on the other hand, if this person has a chronic illness and they're not treating it in the prison, that gets under my skin. That's a bad thing. Or if their rights are being violated, that gets under my skin. And if they need counseling or training or just a special diet and they're not getting it, that's where the prison advocates come in. And we talk about that stuff. I know I was on a Zoom call talking to other advocates, and one woman said that her boyfriend, or no, it wasn't her boyfriend, it was her husband. Her husband went to prison and he's a diabetic, and they weren't giving him the proper care. And she said she would pay for it. She would buy the necessary supplies, and they were rejecting that. But she was thinking, what can I do to get him the stuff that he needs? And he has a right to have that stuff. And that was something that we could all stand behind. But when you talk with a person who's in prison and that person talks about things that are just atrocious, we tend to want to get on the bandwagon and get this thing resolved. The DOC has a habit of abusing its authority. I have personally seen it, and I'm going to be dragging it to public's attention as soon as I finish my investigation. It's kind of interesting because within their little clique, there's so much they can do. I mean, you look at those prisons where people are sexually abused. In some cases, they're filmed with sexual acts. Or there's people that are given drugs and they have an overdose, suicide. These things, they try to hide them. And within the Department of Corrections, there's certain things that have to be brought to the public's attention. If a person escapes and they're caught within 24 hours, they usually don't tell the public about it. But if the person tends to be out for like 3 days or something, then you'll hear about it. And then the DOC will blame somebody or something. They won't usually blame themselves when we know it is their fault. So when I'm dealing with the Department of Corrections, I'm not a happy trooper about the whole thing because I know the things that these people do. I've had that personal experience. And that happened to me because when I started reporting things that were going on in the prison, they would trace them back to the source and they would retaliate against these people. So these men and women were reporting things that were going on in the prison, and then the prison would retaliate against them. And I told headquarters, I said, this is not about them. They're telling me what's going on in there. That's something you guys should have responsibility for. You should take that responsibility. And you're not. You're just allowing it to go on. And sharing it with the public, as a whistleblower will say, shouldn't be a reason to come back at them because they're not the one that's doing this. The DLC is the one that's doing it. if you're going to come after somebody, come after me, because I have the resources to defend myself, defend my friends, and to gather the resources needed to make a change. They just kind of fell on deaf ears. They didn't really care. So I decided, well, okay, I will do something personally that will get them to attack me. And they started lying about me. They wrote to the governor and was saying things that I was doing that wasn't complete. They would say he was denied visitation, but they wouldn't say why, because they concocted this reason. But it made it look like I was this bad person. And then they would give generalization. They were saying I'm a security threat. A security threat is a category. Several things could make up a security threat. But their most detail was security threat. And it just blew my mind at how naive they were acting toward my actions. But in order to win a battle, you need to find your opponent's weakness. And their weakness is their complacency. And they get to the point where they've gotten away with so many different crimes that they feel that they're untouchable. Fortunately, that's not the case. And in the state of Washington, there's a budget crisis. So they're doing a lot to cut the budget. Now, the last governor, he gave the Department of Corrections a big budget. And so when the new governor came in, it's more like, I'll cut things, but I'm not going to cut the penal system. The Department of Corrections is going to be immune from these budget cuts. Well, if we bring up some of the stuff that the Department of Corrections is doing, there's one of two things they could do. Work to improve it, which is put more money into it, or just plain investigate and get rid of the people that are responsible for these things. And that will cut back on the budget, because if you have an administrator who's abusing authority, you get rid of that administrator, you save some money. But to let people know that the Department of Correction doesn't deserve this huge budget and no oversight, that's something that we have to address. That's a concern of ours. And that's why I'm conducting the investigation that I am. I've discovered financial flaws where the people are taking money from the public. You know, there's people that will send money to their loved one, and then the DLC will confiscate it and give some cockamamie answer on why they did it. Or they'll be paying people that don't get the service, or they'll be wasting or destroying resources. And I reported this. Unfortunately, it was during COVID, so they weren't able to follow through with the investigation because of manpower. But I can bring it back up at any time now that things are a little more stable. But with the government cutting back, I kind of want to wait and see, because now the DOC isn't immune. There's people that are suing the DOC and they are winning. And there's actually DOC officials who are getting frustrated with the way things are done. There's investigators out there, like for news media or podcasts, that are exposing things that are going on in there. Some officials are so frustrated that they're leaving. I've spoken to ex-officials who really care about the people that are in there. They know that they committed a crime, but that doesn't mean they're any less human. And they want these people to get out and succeed. It's easier for somebody who really understands what's going on in there to do something. That's why I need to get people that are inside the prison to communicate with me. Now, sometimes it will help reopen the crime investigation that got them put in there in the first place. Because usually courts will open up or reopen a case when new evidence is presented. And I'll talk to people who went to prison as a child, a teenager. Even though they were tried as an adult, they weren't given the resources that an adult has. Like a child during an interrogation needs to have there, and they shouldn't be signing any paperwork. And treating a person like an adult, it's more like, well, we're not going to treat you as a child, where you have to have these things available to you. We're going to treat you as an adult, where it's not required to have somebody with you and help make the decisions for you. And you can sign the paperwork on your own. The thing is, they're not an adult. They don't know about I'm not going to answer any questions without an attorney present, or they don't know about the right to remain silent, the real meaning of it, or they're scared. It's like you'll never see your family again. You won't be able to talk to your mother, and your sister is going to have to learn to survive without you. I mean, these are things that scare them. Or they'll offer them deals like, if you plead guilty, you'll get a reduced sentence, and then they go back on it. And children don't know these, but adults do. But you treat them as an adult without the training and without the experience that an adult has. It's a disaster. And there are a lot of children that are in prison that didn't get that. So while I'm helping them to go over their case, I can discover things that were wrong. And anybody who watches those crime shows will see if a person's pulled into an interrogation, and then the investigators are just pounding them. We found your DNA. You were at the scene. How do you explain that? And these people could sit there for hours. They could be hungry, cold, tired, thirsty, or the worst thing, scared to death. And they're under a lot of pressure. So all this stuff is being bombarded to them. An attorney who's not part of this crime can easily sit there and be level-headed and think things through. And that's why we need to have somebody there. And it's almost as if when a person is arrested, they should immediately get a public defender or their own attorney to sit there with them. The questioning shouldn't even start until there's somebody else in there. But that doesn't happen. And so maybe one day we can get the law where a second person is required to be in any interrogation. Maybe that will help them. I don't know. But we don't need people hating the Department of Corrections. The Department of Corrections should be just that, corrections. Knowing that there's a problem and fixing it. And the first step, the absolute number one step in fixing a problem is to identify it. You might all go out there and say, my car won't start. Okay, that's the result. What's causing the car not to start? And if people are being arrested for shoplifting, what's causing them to shoplift? Now, one of the things I noticed about this trend towards socialism is people are somehow possessed with owning things. A homeless person doesn't have a big priority on possession. They just have things they need. They want a coat, they want shoes, they want underwear, they want toiletries. And a person who goes to prison, they want freedom. They want skills, they want a job, they want a home to just get through their day-to-day stuff. They're not looking for diamond rings or fur coats, or they're not looking for 10 acres. They're just happy with the basics. And so they're not leaning towards socialism as much as the people that are out here and they're working two jobs. Their health is dropping and they can barely afford to feed their kids. Socialism looks good to them. In reality, socialism takes away a lot of their rights and it costs a lot. And you lose that drive to improve. And I like the health system in the United States because when people come up with a good idea, they get rewarded. They get paid for their services. And that's what helps drive this healthcare technology and even technology in the workplace. But in socialist countries, you don't really see a lot of ingenuity. There's not a desire to want to improve their life because they're accepting where they are. They pay these high taxes and they get this medical care, which isn't the best in the world. They get a job and they buy stuff at their grocery stores and department stores, and they ride their public transportation. And there's just not a big move to change anything. You just kind of stay stagnant. In capitalism, you want things to get better. You want to be able to make more money, and you want to be able to be successful. And so you work toward that. In socialists, they kind of take that away. Imagine getting food whether you're working or not, because you get these little food stamps. The people who are working pay all these taxes. You go to the store, you buy something like gas, and you may be paying $4 a gallon in the United States. You may be paying $8 in another country to help offset these extra costs and stuff. So if we can get people out, get them trained, show them that with hard work, you can actually get something. I'd hate for a single mother to be working 3 jobs and have nothing really, and things just keep getting taken. At least work with these programs where people are trying, and let's face it, it doesn't always work. At least have something that will show them that crime isn't the best alternative. And going to school, learning a new skill, applying it will reap some rewards. It's like an artist. An artist goes through school, trains, goes out, paints something, makes a painting, and then is able to sell it for thousands of dollars. That's a motivator. The person wants to continue on. And if we have a government that doesn't tax people heavily, that rewards people for hard work, that gives people benefits to public service, that could help us out. I know when I was in the military, we got a lot, and the military is available to just about everybody. And when I got out, I could use that skill to get a job. And if we have schools that give people that training, that give people the economic skills so they can balance their budget and look for deals, I think we'll have a better chance of reducing our prison population. And maybe we can concentrate on turning the Department of Corrections into the operation that it should be, instead of this crazy little I'm immune to everything you throw at me mentality. Because I'm going to get the Washington Department of Corrections one way or the other. I've got enough evidence as it is. But that's not going to help anybody. We need a change, and we need to show people that they're worth it. They are meaningful adults that have a purpose in life. That's just it. Well, thanks for listening. And please sit down with your family and your friends and discuss ways to improve your life and to help others and to share your skills with those who need it the most. And never underestimate anybody. They're meaningful. They have a life that's got a purpose. Well, have yourself a marvelous day and make magnificent memories for tomorrow.